just in time. This is a special 420 edition, so please pick your feet up, relax, and burn one during this episode. Check out the website, website, and my designs are up in the merchandise store, www.justinpemory.com. Check me out on all social media channels, at Justin Emery Show. My Instagram and my Facebook are pretty weak, so please link all in there and give me a follow. I also need to send a special shout out to all of you guys out there that listen. Today marks the 1 month anniversary of the show, and it has greatly exceeded my expectations to where we would be by at this point in time. So I need to send a special thank you to everyone out there who continues to listen, download the show. I appreciate it, and I thank you for choosing to listen to me during this difficult time.
So without any further ado, I would like to welcome my next guest on, Jason Osborne, marijuana activist and no-till farmer. Hey, Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, just a little quarantined in, but as a self-proclaimed introvert, I'm not necessarily complaining. I wish people would stay safe and would be smart, but I don't really leave that much anyway, so my day doesn't really change.
I hear you on that.
So I'm really glad I could get you on to do the special 420 edition of the show. I really don't know anybody that I could ask who would be a better guest for this particular episode than you. So before we get started, anytime I have a episode or a show or anything that drops on 420, I need all of my guests to give me a nice big bong rip. So if you don't mind, for the audience out there, let us get one.
Not at all, not at all. You know me, I'm always down to smoke. And happy 420 since this is dropping on 420. And I have here in my bong, and I can't show anybody, but I have a nice bowl of some, I believe this is a strain we grew this last season called Private Reserve. And I've got it covered with a bunch of keef on top of it. And yeah, here we go. Check it out. Yeah.
Nothing like a nice big bong rip. So let me ask you this question. As someone who knows nothing really about growing, from seed to smoke, how long is a typical cycle?
Well, I mean, cycles are kind of, they're somewhat strain dependent, obviously, because there are many strains that, come out earlier. And if you're doing auto flowers versus regular type stuff. But, I mean, your typical cycle, see, I started indoor hydro. And typical cycle on an indoor hydro was 90 to 120 days. And I could pop you out a 5-pound plant. And then you can refine that to where you can get, I mean, some of these large facilities are harvesting pounds per week because they just get on a continual cycle of growing. Up here in Oregon, if you ever look at the back of a seed packet and you see on the picture of the United States, the little band colors, like when you should plant, Southern Oregon is just on the lowest tip of one of the bands. So we plant here, usually we get in the ground by about Father's Day. That's the goal, in the ground in Father's Day. And most of the strains that we plant down here are going to come out in about September. Some push to October. I myself have grown, for example, when I grew Northern Lights out here, I had that stuff in the ground all the way to Thanksgiving. So it's pretty variable. And, the choice is made by the grower based on when they want to harvest and how they're kind of planning their season to go.
So you consider yourself a no-till farmer. What does that mean, and what do you do differently compared to someone who I guess would be considered a till farmer?
Right. Yeah. So, and it's not quite no-till or till. No-till just kind of designate. It's kind of a better designation than organic, in my opinion. For example, when I had my farm, it took me 3 years to get to where I was doing things the way I wanted, and that's, you've got to clear the land out and take out everything that was causing any issues with soil. Things build up in the soil, and you want to get those out of there. Starting my own compost piles and cooking compost for a couple of years to have my own compost. And then I use that to make all my compost teas, which is what I water with. I don't use anything out of a bottle ever. No-till, pretty much what it implies is you get a lot of people whose idea of being a grower follows that green rusher theme, where they just come into a new market, they go buy themselves some $125 or $150 a yard soil and put that out there. And of course, they grow great plants because it's all the best soil. But they turn around then in the next season, they grow a plant that's a fourth of the size because they don't know what to do in the interim, and that's the difference. The difference is the way I treat my soil after harvest, where I come out and put on a hot load of compost and cover it with black plastic and let that sit on the soil over the winter. And then in the spring, you actually do till, but you till in that stuff. Very few amendments need to be added, and your soil is alive. It's about keeping the soil you have functional without feeling the need to go out and buy fresh soil every year. A lot of these farms are staying with these soil piles because they go out every year and buy fresh soil because they think that's what you have to do to be a killer grower. And it's just not. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. If you want to create the best product, you got to start with the best ingredients, and buying it over the counter is not always necessarily the right way to go. So how much...
Well, again, as I mentioned, the sustainability, sustainability is what I think, especially in the cannabis industry, which when you look at the large majority of our consumers, they're people who live those alternative lifestyles and are very into things like a carbon footprint and so forth. I'd be amazed to see if they started printing out information about what it takes to do indoor grows, how many of those people would still buy indoor cannabis? Because, I mean, there's a facility I know of in California that was paying a six-figure electric bill every month to keep open. Think about that.
How much was it?
A six-figure electric bill.
Oh, my.
On a facility to grow indoor cannabis. Now, think about that. Yeah, they're harvesting pounds per week. They're making money hand over fist. That electric bill doesn't mean anything to them. But what does it mean to you as a consumer supporting that? I mean, that electricity is coming from somewhere. They ain't solar. And I just think people should really look into, people like me who are on that side of the no-till farming, of the sustainability of our industry. Like, how come Duke tubes weren't made out of hemp right out of the start? It's biodegradable. Instead, they're made out of plastic, and we're just as bad as the K-cups going into the landfill.
So if you're gonna grow a plant, say I'm going out there, I'm gonna plant a seed. Is there a typical amount that I can expect to yield? Is it like, hey, each plant's going to get you 5 pounds, or is it just however much it yields? That's how much it yields.
Well, and again, it always starts with the strain. So strain typically, have their yield from the genetics they are. So like, for example, a lot of people out here grow Jaeger. It's a very popular strain, and the reason it's so popular is because it's known for its yield. One year I harvested on a medical farm 48 25-pound plants. They all look like little Epcot centers, and that was all Jaeger, and it was tremendous. That same year, went to a friend's house with, another strain, and they were pulling down 8-pound plants. There's a lot to be said for strain selection on that, and then there's also, of course, a lot to be said for how you grow the plant. Are you going to put it in the ground, walk away, forget about it, not doing any training, pulling up the leaves, leafing, things that we do to get light penetration, because again, light penetration, lumens per square inch, that's what you're looking for good bud structure growth and of course, development
I'm a big sativa guy. I know, talking to you, you're an indica person. You break
Yeah.
down, and there's obviously the third style, hybrid. Could you break down briefly the differences between the three of those?
Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty simple. The layman's way to put it is, if you want to go out and do stuff with your day, you smoke sativa. And if you want to lay around and watch TV and be lazy, it's indica. And then hybrids are just a cross of a sativa and an indica, and then usually they'll have a way they lean. So even though it's a hybrid, it'll be a sativa leaning hybrid or a indica leaning hybrid. There's not very many that fall dead bang in the center. My personal choice is indica because of my tolerance. I've been smoking daily, waking day smoking all day since the mid-90s. So my tolerance is exceedingly high, and most sativas just don't touch it. It just doesn't do anything for me. I always like to describe it, the sativa is how you get, like, if you put your hand on the back of your head like you're wearing a yarmulke. That's kind of where sativa is, right? And then if you pull your hand forward,
I like that.
Push down on your forehead and give yourself kind of that Cro-Magnon look. That's where the indica likes to sit. So, those are the ways I describe what indica and sativa are, with the way they impact people.
I like that. I'm gonna hold on to that one for the future. So you were talking terps, talking flavor profiles. Personally,
Yeah.
big fan of limonene. All those citrusy flavors. Why don't you throw me out one or two of your favorites, and then maybe make a suggestion or two for someone who is not necessarily have as high a tolerance as you or I might have.
Right. And I mean, terps really don't have much to do with the buzz as far as the potency. In the only way that they do, in my opinion, is that they provide that flavor that you eat with your eyes first, so you smoke with your mouth first, not your lungs, because it's got to go through your mouth, so you're going to taste it. I'm more partial to the flavor profiles that others tend to shy away from. Like, my favorite strain is cheese. I love a good stinky cheese strain. I was growing UK cheese on my farm.
I have friends that are also big fans of cheese.
Yeah, and that's a different terp than, the limonene. Now, and be careful on that too. One thing, a lot of people assume that if you smell that lemony, citrusy smell in any strain, that it automatically has limonene. And unless it's been tested for it to show it has it, there's a lot of strains out there that have that citrus smell that don't have that terp. But, I'll say the best thing about the terps that I like is working with them when I'm in the processing facilities and seeing them brought out to just a cup of nothing but terps. I mean, that's the treat, But yeah, I typically go for like I'm horrible with the name, the myrcene that you find in the Granddaddy Purple and the Cherry Pie. That's a big strain, because again, those are going to be your indicas, and really be putting me down for the night. So.
So there's a bunch of different ways to consume, vape, which is what I'm personally doing right now. Flower, which is what you are doing in your bong. Edibles, dabs, etc. Can you throw them on a chart for me, say from I guess least intense to most intense?
I mean, see, that's a personal thing, because for me, I enjoy the vaping and the dabbing and the oils and stuff because they're fun. But I'm an old school flower guy, and for me, the flower is just where it's at. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever seen the Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he's sitting there talking to the dude and talking about the ritual of what they do. And of course, heroin. But I really enjoy my ritual. I enjoy grinding the flour in my grinder and packing it into the bowl. Then if I'm feeling particularly junky like I was for this, I get my keef out and I put some keef on top. But it always comes back to flour. I can sit here and do dabs. I've gone to parties where we were doing 1 gram dabs, dropping a gram in there at a time. And I'll get done doing a gram dab and then walk over and light a blunt or, take a rip on a bong. Because to me, it just always comes back to flour. And also, when you're breaking it all down, let's remember that vaping, dabbing, oils, flowers, anything you smoke goes to one side and then edibles go to the other. Because, of course, we process them completely different in our bodies. Everything you smoke is going to go through your lungs and get processed through your respiratory system, whereas an edible, so that's got to go through your liver. So I tend to shy away from edibles because they hit me very hard. And it takes, for my tolerance being as giant as it is, I can take a 50 milligram cookie and be sick.
Yeah, I personally am the same way. I stay away from edibles. They're a little too much for me. Little too much. Mm-hmm. So
there are some really great ones out there, though. I mean, and we've got lots of great companies here in Oregon. Of course, I know things don't, move around. We're not talking CBD here. We're talking THC. But there's some really good. I enjoy more of the dry product that has it baked into it, like a brownie or a cookie or something like that. I'm not fond of like the gummy bears or anything that like. If it feels like I'm actually just eating oil, I don't like that,
See, I'm big on the cookies. I'm personal preference of the cookies or the Rice Krispie treats.
Rice Krispie treat rock, yeah, that's a good one.
So I'm going to as I'm asking you the next question, I'd like you to rip another one for the listeners out there. What's your go-to munchie snack?
My go-to munchie snack? Like not medicated?
Yeah. No. Like, you're chiefed on the sofa. You got the munchies. What are you grabbing?
I'm a potato chip guy.
Potato chip. Plain? What are you talking? Barbecue?
Okay.
Sour cream and onion?
Up, just original potato, just basic potato chips. If I want to do a dip, then I go to like your wavy, your ruffles, whatever, But no, I'm real basic. I don't like any of the flavored ones because I don't like the stuff to go on my fingers.
That makes sense. If you could pick a strain, I know you said you were a fan of cheese earlier. Name me like say your top 3, top 4, strains out there, whether you grew them or not. Just your top 3, 4 strains out there.
Oh, absolutely. Again, cheese is my favorite. And it's so hard to find. So when I find it, I usually snatch it. Forbidden fruit, which would have that. I believe forbidden fruit would have the limonene in it. But it's definitely citrusy. It just tastes like a grapefruit every time you smoke it. Gorilla Glue. Love
big
Gorilla
fan.
Glue.
Big fan.
Yeah, and I actually grew Gorilla Glue a couple of times, and man, it's a good yielder, and it's just that's still at least the way I grow it. And then I'm like anything purple. Usually, if it's a purple or like that, I like that dark nug that has like the bits of leaf sticking out that almost look black. They're so dark. Like that nug is like that's like the dark crystal coming to get you.
Yeah, a brief story. One of the best strains, individual like batches I've ever had. I'm not going to go into the details of the story because it didn't happen at a dispensary, so I'm not going to. But it was, I broke it open, and like almost like the stems were purple. It was fascinating to see.
Yeah. And then I can't believe I didn't even mention it. The first strain I ever grew in a non-legal state, in a non-legal situation, I actually got seeds sent to me from Mark Emery out of Canada. I don't know if you know who he is. He's the Prince of Pot up in Canada.
Yes.
So I ordered seeds from him with my friend, and it was White Widow, which is one of my all-time favorite strains, too. Can't believe I haven't mentioned the name of this yet. And then it was crossed with Big Bud. And so we're talking, by the time we got done, and we're in a closet growing this. In a closet grow, you train every branch because you cannot afford for a branch to be off in a wrong way or whatever. So by the time they're done, it looked kind of like a weapon like Aquaman would carry, a trident with all the different points coming up because no points overlap each other. It's crazy. But we ended up with football-sized colas. And the best thing about White Widow is when you do it right, it looks like somebody sprayed the whole tree down with snow. The Christmas snow?
Right.
And then when you crack that, it just breaks up. It's like frosting. It's so amazing. White Widow, that's a good one if you ever get it.
I too am a fan of White Widow. So, for those of you that don't know, your Twitter handle's at Crazy Batman Fan.
That's me.
So, who's your favorite Batman villain and why?
My favorite Batman villain is Ra's al Ghul, and that's long since before the movies. I was a fan of his all the way back in the early 90s. I did a television show in Austin, Texas on the Austin Access station there, and I had the good fortune to get to interview Denny O'Neil, who was the editor-in-chief of all Batman comics and co-created Ra's al Ghul. So that's my jam. No, they didn't get him right in Batman Begins. Although I did enjoy that movie thoroughly. And Christian Bale currently ranks in a very slim lead over Michael Keaton as my favorite Batman. But that's my favorite Batman villain. It's Ra's al Ghul. Just take that attachment to it.
Now, did you see any of that show, Gotham, that Fox used to have?
I watched the first season, but then they started taking a few too many liberties with canon, and I'm a purist, so I backed off at that point.
Because Ra's al Ghul is in the later seasons.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Ra's al Ghul is in the later seasons.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure. I didn't know if you had caught that. I believe it's the end of season 3 or so, maybe the beginning of season 4. The show has since been canceled, but right around there, he makes a couple of appearances.
Interesting.
So I too agree with you, Christian Bale, favorite Batman personally. I think that the Heath Ledger Joker, best acting villain of all time. However,
Absolutely.
Joaquin Phoenix, very good job. Very, very good job.
I loved it. Loved it. I went into it with a huge chip on my shoulder, but my God, Joaquin. And it's sad that to hear him and the director talk about it, they've only just started discussing the option of a second movie because he didn't want to, of course, get locked into anything. But it was such a success, they're thinking about doing a second movie. But they've confirmed he has no interest in playing a Joker in a Batman movie, which, oh my goodness, could you imagine?
Yeah, no, I thought it was phenomenal. So, is Robert Pattinson going to be good? You sound much more open to it.
And I've been this ever since. Crazy Batman Fan has been my handle since for over 30 years now. And you go on any website, usually if I've gotten there before you, I'm Crazy Batman Fan on the site. And I skipped all of the Ben Affleck Batman. So the first Batman movies.
As did I.
kid alive. I mean, I met Adam West at a Batman convention in 2004 in Dallas, Texas. You know, this is my jam, but I still haven't seen any of those Ben Affleck movies. I just won't watch them. Robert Pattinson, you know, I don't have any real reason to dislike him, but I'm not a fan. But, you know, I have to admit that I was one of the 13,000 people that wrote a letter to DC Comics asking them not to use Michael Keaton in 87. So I have that on my back.
Hey, at least you admit it.
I
At
tried
least
to
you admit it.
stop Michael Keaton.
Hey, at least you admit it.
Who, by the way, Michael Keaton was my favorite. It's still my favorite Bruce Wayne. Because I just love the kind of fun quirkiness he brought to the Bruce Wayne. It wasn't so much, it was Playboy, but not Playboy in the way you've seen it done with the Bonds and everything.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Last one more question before I let you go out the door. In the next 5 years, where do you see legalization?
That's tricky because it's all about our political climate, isn't it? I mean, I think the states are going to keep doing what they're doing. I was so proud of our state attorney generals over here on the West Coast who politely wrote a letter to Jeff Sessions when he was picked in the early days of the situation where they're now beginning. And they told him to pretty much go for a flying leap. I'll be polite. But, you know, they stood up for what we had and what we've done. And as somebody who's testified before the city, the county, the state, to a point where I'm known by most county commissioners, the city, all the people that sit on the dais for state, to see them stand up for that was really important. And where we go in the next 5 years, I mean, we have to see. I mean, even if we are lucky enough to get a changeover to the Democratic nominee, which looks like it's going to be Joe's not a fan of cannabis. He's not doing anything for it. And so that pretty much things will remain status quo, that the states will keep doing what they're doing. It will remain a states' rights issue, hopefully, for now. And it'll be the wild, wild west until we get something on a federal level that's reasonable. Because, I mean, that's all that's happening now. My dog in the fight is, and the shame that we're losing it is what's happening to the medical programs. You have to watch that every time that one of these states goes legal with rec, within 2 years they lose their medical program or it's a shell of what it was. So this is an important thing. I mean, it's happened in all our states out here. And I just think people need to be aware that, you know, what it really boils down to is that the state governments and soon the federal government are just tired of not getting their share of that tax money on all that medical cannabis that was getting moved around. And so they gave us rec so they could start getting their share and then took away our medical programs that were actually saving lives. So.
No, I love to hear everything that's going on with it. Jason Osborne, at Crazy Batman Fan on Twitter. I appreciate you taking the time, jumping on, and breaking the stigma for the listeners out there. And let me get one more rip on the way out.
Absolutely. I just packed a green one.
Oh, fresh.
That's 420, y'all.
I appreciate Jason taking time to jump on the program today on what I can only assume is probably the busiest day, 420. That's going to wrap up episode number 9 of Just in Time. Rate and review, preferably 5 stars. Check out the website, www.justinpemory.com. Follow on social media at Justin Emery Show.
Episode 10 will be out at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. And for all the Eagles fans out there, I have the guys from 4th and John jumping on the show, and we're breaking down the NFL draft. So, episode 10 a.m. on Thursday, and you guys will hear from me then.